for this afternoon. So just to remind you, the general umbrella of the session was the multilingual education for a better future in a fast evolving world. And our next session will be multilingual education and the use of technology and AI. May I ask our moderator, Natalia, Amelina, to join us on stage. Natalia is from the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education. And our speakers, Cecile Eftedal, Monge Tlaka, Paulin Malataja, Tinti Rabotapi, and Sakriani Sakti, please. Welcome, thank you. Natalia. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, it's a pleasure and honor for me to moderate our next section today. In the afternoon, I can understand that maybe you are tired already, but today we will speak about artificial intelligence, and the focus of our session will be multilingual education with the help of technologies and AI. And before this session, when I was preparing to the session, I tried to check artificial intelligence. I took, for example, DeepSeek. This is one of the Chinese versions of new version number 3 of artificial intelligence, and I asked AI about linguistic minorities. I asked AI to provide some examples, how to pronounce different phrases in different languages. For example, in Khoisan, this is African language, and I asked to provide some examples on it. And of course, the artificial intelligence knows it. It provides me some good examples, but unfortunately, it cannot support translation from these languages. Unfortunately, it cannot support teaching and learning practices and so on. So today we are going to discuss very, very important issues regarding the achievements and challenges of multilingual diversity, of multilingual environment in education. Multilingualism fosters cultural diversity, facilitates cross-lingual communication, and improves individuals' cognitive abilities such as problem-solving and creativity. Recently, AI and education technology have emerged as tools with potential for protecting endangered languages and promoting multilingual practices in society. Today, we have a great panel. Let me introduce to you our panel members. Miss Cecile Eftedal, Miss Monge Tlaka, Mr. Paulin Malataja, Mr. Tinti Rabotapi, and Miss Sakriani Sakti. Welcome to our session. Before we will start, let me remind you that we will have appropriately 1 hour for our session, and we have a privilege to have simultaneous translation into English, French, Spanish, and sign languages. There will be one panel followed by questions and answers, and then probably some small discussion. I think we may start. There will be 2 rounds of questions, 2 rounds of discussions, and I will ask the speakers on the first question, and you will have up to 7 minutes to respond. Then, In second round, I will ask each speaker to give 2 key recommendations, I would say, takeaway recommendations, and you will have 1 minute to answer the second question. So let me start with Miss Cecile Eftedal. At Sopra Steria, your mission involves leveraging digital technology to build a positive future and delivering solutions that integrate interactions between the digital world and society. In the context of multilingual education and the use of technology and AI, how can digital innovations be harnessed to create and distribute learning resources for children in underserved language communities? Could you also share the main challenges encountered in this process and the key success achieved so far?
Yes, thank you. I'll actually use the Global Digital Library as an example when I talk about or answer your first question. More than 620 million children and adolescents worldwide are not able to read, despite the fact that they've actually been attending school for years. This global education crisis made All Children Reading and NORAD, the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, join forces and create the Global Digital Library in 2016. The Global Digital Library, shortened GDL, is an online library with more than 11,000 learning resources. They're free, of high quality, and in literacy and numeracy for children aged 6 to 12, I would say. They are translated into 150 underserved languages, and the resources are accessible for all. Before we move on, I'd like to ask anyone in the audience if they know what language this book page is in. Anyone? Yeah? That's right, it's Zulu. Okay, you can go to the next slide. A vital part of working towards resources in many languages, in as many languages as possible, has been to translate books. And in cooperation with UNICEF, but even more importantly with UNESCO, we have conducted several translation campaigns, both on-site and online. Some examples are Bangladesh, Ukraine, Palestine, Nepal, and Ghana. And the most successful of them all is the one where you see the pictures from here. It's Indonesia, and I call it a translation success story. Because in 2023, we had 2 on-site campaigns organized by the Ministry of Education and Culture, together with UNESCO and the DDL, and in only 3 days, the translators managed to translate as many as 250 books into Bahasa Indonesia. And if that wasn't good enough, the next time around, a couple of months later, I think almost 300 books were translated into endangered languages spoken across Indonesia, which is unbelievable in only 3 days, I would say. There was a third campaign as well, where the translators now actually managed to do this on their own, so the GDL wasn't present. And they did this with 28 translators and translated another 120 books, I think it was. Considering the number of languages in Indonesia, it's not much, but it's definitely a start. Can go to the next one. And just start the video.
Mom cooks, I cook too. Mom cooks, I cook too. Cooks. Mom waters flowers, I water flowers too. Mom washes clothes. I wash clothes too. At night, Mom tells me stories. Mom sings me a lullaby. I love my mom.
With the global learning
Love.
crisis, and an extreme high number of illiterate children, the GDL has, for the last 6 months, worked on a tool that actually can teach children how to learn to read, and we call it the interactive book. It's great to have a library full of books, as we do with the GDL, but if you can't read, you need to start somewhere and you need to learn how to do it. So this is the tool, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. I just want to say first that being a language teacher myself, I think this is a really valuable tool. It's open source, it's free, and it can be used offline, which is very important, as we have actually seen that a lot of children can only be reached if books are offline due to a lack of connectivity. Also, with a large, very large, actually, number of languages in the world, it's important to have a tool where you can create books as efficiently as possible, but it must not reduce the quality of the book. And to reach this goal, we've used various AI tools to help us in the process. When you looked at this interactive book, and it's a demo, so we have just worked on it for six months, and we will further improve it after having user tested in South Africa in a week, actually. We're doing that. You hear complete sentences or separate words, which means that the child can actually repeat and repeat both words and the sentences as many times as it needs to learn the content. Also, if you see, some of these words are connected to an illustration that is animated, so they also get a picture of what does this word really mean. Talking more about AI, translators can add their own recordings in the authoring tool if they want to do that. Then the text goes through Whisper, and Whisper is an AI tool that aligns words, audio, and visual cues, as well as speech to text. And we did this manually before, and it was a really tiresome process. And in this book, it's an artificial voice, and it's done through 11 Labs API and Whisper. And also for the illustrations, we've used AI tools. It's efficient, it provides versatile designs, and if you give specific prompts, you can get creative results, and furthermore, the characters are consistent. So Lottie files and FreePick, for example, are tools that have been used there. You can find the books on the platform and also on the Curious Reader app. And I just want to say, finally, that these interactive books is built in a model that can actually change. So we want it to be future-proof because we know that AI and tech changes rapidly.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, for your fantastic examples and fantastic practices. Thank you. Now we are turning to Ms. Monge Tlaka. Ms. Monge Tlaka, given your experience in digital learning, multilingual education, and open educational resources, how can technology-driven platforms like the Early Learning Resource Network be leveraged to expand access to quality multilingual learning materials? What strategies have proven effective in localizing content and ensuring equitable access to foundational literacy and numeracy resources across diverse linguistic communities?
Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. I've had the privilege to work over the last 20 years in developing platforms, primarily in the education sector, to provide access to teaching and learning resources. One such initiative is the Early Learning Resource Network, ELRN, which provides openly licensed books and instructional materials in underserved languages to support foundational literacy. ELRN provides print-ready resources that are readily available for large-scale printing, either through governments or users that are printing for children to have access to books. By doing this, the investments of material extends beyond the life of the project, ensuring long-term sustainability and reusability. Education provision in languages children understand is essentially ensuring that learning is inclusive, culturally relevant, accessible to all. However, despite the technological advancement, linguistic diversity is often overlooked in digital learning initiatives. The challenge is not only about providing content in multiple languages, but ensuring that the content remains accessible, adaptable, and sustainable over time. A key solution lies in open licensing and government-led initiatives that provide multilingual content creation and ensure that resources are freely available in the correct formats for translation, adaptation, and long-term use. Open licensing provides a legal framework that allows creators of content to share their work under a Creative Commons license, enabling others to freely use, modify, and distribute. ELRN at this stage has over 30 languages with titles that are being translated and adapted. There are open files that are available on the site to allow any translation to easily be done. Technology has the power to scale multilingual education, but only if the content is openly licensed. OERs, or open education resources, empower governments, educators, and communities to create and adapt content without the financial or legal barrier. Governments can prioritize policies that require openly licensed educational material, ensuring that books, curricula, instructional resources, including all the source files, these can either be text, illustrations, and interactive elements are made available on platforms like ELRN and OER Africa. However, accessibility is still a challenge. For learners in low connectivity areas, low bandwidth, environments, so that we must ensure that technology is designed for low bandwidth environments so that multilingual education reaches all communities. One major challenge in the underrepresentation of African languages on the internet and AI-powered tools, which limits access and digital education for millions of learners. A promising initiative addressing this issue is Vula Vula project, which facilitates communication across multiple South African languages, including isiZulu, Sesotho, and Afrikaans, through AI-powered language processing tool. This is an important step towards closing a digital linguistic divide and promoting linguistic diversity across the continent. Simply translating content is not enough. We must ensure that the materials are culturally relevant and contextually appropriate for different linguistic communities. While technology presents exciting opportunities, there are still critical challenges that must be addressed to ensure multilingual education is truly equitable. The divide remains a major barrier, particularly in marginalized communities. Many learners still lack access to devices, reliable connectivity, and electricity. This is why we cannot overlook the need for printed books in underserved languages. Investments should go beyond content creation. We must ensure that there are sustainable digital tools, platforms, and infrastructure that enable learners from different backgrounds to engage with online education. Beyond infrastructure, investments must focus on building capacity, sharing resources, and storing resources for future reuse to make multilingual education truly sustainable. Technology is only as effective as the educators who use it. To fully harness multimedia learning, governments and institutions must invest in long-term teacher training, not just one-time investment. Capacity building efforts must be sustained to ensure that teachers have the skills to integrate multimedia digital resources into their classrooms. OER strategies must be embedded in national education policies to ensure that high-quality, openly licensed content in all languages becomes a standard in schools. Community-driven localizations must be actively supported. Programs like the African Storybook Project and the Story Weaver allow educators and local experts to contribute translations and adaptations that are more authentic and relevant for learners. Access to multimedia education through technology must also address gender disparities. To truly scale multilingual education, technology must be inclusive, sustainable, and adaptable. It is not just an ideal, it is an achievement if we commit to open, sustainable, and inclusive education. As we discuss this today, let's look at ourselves and ask ourselves, how can we ensure that the digital transformation in education does not leave any child or language behind? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Monge Tlaka, for sharing with us your vision and your practices regarding localization of multilingual educational content and providing access to learning resources. And now we would like to turn to Mr. Pauling Melitaja. Mr. Pauling, we are aware that AI can be a fantastic tool when it comes to linguistic diversity, but we also know that there are multiple challenges. With your extensive experience in artificial intelligence and natural language processing, practically for African languages, could you please share with us key challenges and opportunities on how AI can be used to create sustainable improvements in mother language learning?
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to participate in this discussion. Now, I'm a researcher in computer science, and I'd like to touch upon two issues. First, to explain how a researcher in computer science is invited to discuss a subject concerning multilingual education in African languages, and also to present the opportunities and challenges for the use of artificial intelligence, especially for multilingual learning in the context of African languages. Now, first of all, I must say that I'm a member of a lab within the University of Yaoundé 1 who have been working with computer science for some years, and we've been working on the use of artificial intelligence for African languages. And we've continued this work because we had a favorable environment. First, within our university and other universities in Cameroon, we have linguists who've been working for a very long time. And the African languages, and especially in Cameroon, have an alphabet published in 1978. So a lot of work has already been done. We've also met at grassroots level language communities and associations that have been working to promote their local languages. So this has also helped our work and has also justified the fact that we were continuing with this research. Now, on a more African-wide scale, we also have a drive to use artificial intelligence in African languages. The Masakani community in particular has been working on the production of content and scientific research in the promotion of these languages. And on my way, I was fortunate to encounter and to discuss with the Elan project representatives that we heard about this morning. They also participate in multilingual teaching in African countries. So we have a favorable environment. You have some information here on this slide, about 2,000 languages across Africa, about 200 in Cameroon, hyperdiversity in language terms. If you have 200 languages in a country such as Cameroon, then the Ministry of Education, which has introduced in curricula the teaching in local languages and cultures, and you have teachers who may speak one or two languages, and the pupils speak up to 8 or 9. So how does the teacher set up the teaching program? That's quite difficult. We believe that we need to offer tools that will enable a teacher speaking only 2 languages to assess and teach pupils speaking up to 10 languages in the classroom. Also, another point is that we have a ratio teacher per student that is very weak in a number of African countries, and in ours in particular. We have new curricula, and how does the teacher simply manage the work? There's much to do, and this is an opportunity and an opening for artificial intelligence. And another matter that has been discussed during previous panels, teacher training. Teachers can speak a given language, but not be able to set up a program defined at ministry level. So they need ongoing training for those that are already in work and propose new training for those that are still in training. Now, artificial intelligence has solutions to offer. What are we talking about? We have a number of tasks in artificial intelligence that have already been discussed. We have automatic translation. That is one of the best-known apps for artificial intelligence, taking a text in one language and translating it into another. You can see it in ChatGPT, DeepSeek, whatever. They manage to do that work. However, it remains very difficult for African languages for a number of reasons that have been mentioned on the previous slide. Perhaps we can go back. One has to do with the linguistic distance between African languages and the most used languages in AI, French and English. We also have a diversity of dialects. We also have languages that are mainly oral in nature. We have a lot of endogenous concepts that do not really translate into French or English. So this is why existing models of artificial intelligence are not really functional with regard to African languages. So we have a need to specifically deal with the issue of using AI for African languages. We're talking about automatic translation. If we can go back to the next slide. We also have speech transcription. This is a very interesting application because it enables you to move from spoken word to written text and to preserve that knowledge in a document. We have speech synthesis. Now, for speech synthesis, we have some applications that can do it, text to word, text to oral speech. But what is not frequently taken into consideration is the quality of the speech synthesis. So using AI for learning mother languages, we also have creating new pedagogical materials, assessment assistant, personalized learning and training, and gamification, which places pupils in a context that they understand, where the concepts are those of their own language and culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pauling, for your great examples, first of all, from your University of Yaoundé. And thank you for highlighting such important issues like holistic approach and continuing research, which you have at your university, and also very, very important point, teacher training. Teacher training is so important if we speak about multilingual education environment with the support of technologies. Thank you. And now we're moving forward and turning now to Ms. Sacriani, for Mr. Tinti Rabotapi. South Africa seems to have been doing a significant amount of work to support its teachers and students, particularly on issues on mother tongue-based education in the early grades. Could you kindly share some of key initiatives you have implemented in this area, their impact on teachers and students, and the key lessons learned that could guide future efforts?
Okay, no, thank you very much. Just to indicate that South Africa as a country comes from a history where there has been mainly two languages that were very dominant, which is English and Afrikaans. And so part of our responsibility as a ministry has been to ensure that we diversify investment also in other indigenous languages so that we can then improve, the content in terms of other African languages and other indigenous languages. So we had to make sure that firstly we address this in terms of policy. And so that's why in 1997 we introduced the National Language in Education Policy, which was mainly about encouraging multilingualism and also ensuring that we facilitate social cohesion with ensuring that different cultural groups are able to learn each other's languages. So, but then from the Ministry of Education perspective, we've also undertaken a number of programs with a view to ensure that we assist our teachers in terms of particular approaches in terms of how you are able to teach languages. Of course, we had to first start with understanding how English and Afrikaans have made the gains that they have made, and taking those lessons out of English and Afrikaans and see how we can translate those into building more competence around the teaching of other African languages. So we have undertaken the program on primary school reading improvement program, which was mainly about capacitating our teachers in terms of methodologies about how you teach English as a language. And then we also then collaborated with the British Council around the program on Learn English audiovisual program, or the LEAP. But so through this program, that's where we now brought in the issue of technology in the teaching of language. That's where we were using the chatbots, wherein you were using like your storytelling methodology, using songs in order to deliver messages around key languages. But other than that, we've then also focused on other mother tongue-based languages. For an example, we introduced the incremental introduction of African languages, but this was mainly targeting the historical speakers of English and Afrikaans, so that they can also be exposed now to African languages and be able to be competent in other African languages. We have now moved to introducing what we call mother tongue-based bilingual reading literacy, which is now using mother tongue in terms of the teaching of subjects. We have largely been using mother tongue in our inception grades from grade R to grade 3, but now we are expanding that to beyond grade 4. Because our experiences is that teachers who are teaching in the higher grades have actually been using translation, or what we call translanguaging, where they were explaining concepts and in key subjects in their mother tongue. But the limitation has been that the assessment has always been done in English. So what we are doing at the moment is to assist them also to be able to assess in African languages, and also to ensure that we move beyond grade 4. And then the other work that we've been doing, of course, was around South African Sign Language, which has also been recognized as an official language. Now, talking specifically about the LEAP project that we have been undertaking with the British Council, we started in 2014, where the project was piloted in 159 schools, and it was piloted in 4 districts and in 4 main provinces of our country. And then we used some of the lessons that we learned out of that pilot project to see how we can upscale the use of African languages, using the lessons learned from the English approach, how we could upscale that so that it could benefit more teachers. So in 2019, when COVID hit, then we were able to ensure that those recorded lessons are also made available through the WhatsApp platforms so that they could be accessed through as wide variety of teachers as possible. So now we have moved that. We are now also developing an online teacher development platform that will be used now by all the teachers, and we are going to make sure that the resources that are developed can then be accessed by the teachers through the online teacher development platform, and it will also assist us to access some of the open education learning resources that we can evaluate and deposit on the platform so that teachers can also have access to those. And it is our intention also to make our platform AI enhanced so that it can also facilitate the teaching or the support of the teachers in terms of making them more literate. So those are the lessons that we have learned, and we hope that with our new mother tongue-based bilingual literacy approach, we'll be able to upscale the lessons we've learned from the implementation of the LEAP and the use of our online platform to ensure that firstly we have quality materials on that are being developed, and that these materials can then be easily accessible through our platform so that we can then improve the language literacy of our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tinti Rabotapi, for your deep understanding of challenges and strategies on supporting multilingual environment with the help of technologies, which combines technological innovation, community engagement, and educational initiatives. Thank you so much. And now we are turning to Ms. Sakriani Sakti. Many mother languages remain underrepresented in AI-driving solutions. With your expertise in human-AI interaction and language technology, could you kindly highlight the key challenges and opportunities in ensuring AI benefits all mother tongue languages? Additionally, how do initiatives like language technologies for all contribute to bridging these gaps?
Thank you, Natalie, for the question, and thank you. I'm really honored to be here. So, is my slide? Okay. So I've been working on the human-AI interaction through language technology. So the idea is to advancing the human-AI collaboration through speech, text, and image interaction. And this is we focusing on language and paralanguage to enhance the human's potential. So if you see the picture on the left side, there are many ways we can do the human-AI interaction. So for example, if the communication is between human and human, for example, the female speak English while the boys speak Japanese and they cannot speak each other. So we try to enhance this with the speech translation so then they can finally communicate each other. On the right side is when the machine learning how to learning language from human like a toddler learning. And the left side, bottom side, is where the machine is have more intelligent than human. They can give or provide information or knowledge to enhance the human intelligence. And finally, on the right bottom side is between the machine and the machine. For example, one is training with the big data, with the big GPU, and the other one is small one, so they can also do transfer learning. And the way we interact, we can do with the robot or avatar. So let me show with the example of the robots. Hi, could you introduce me to Human AI Interaction Laboratory?
Hello, I am Bell Robot. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the Human AI Interaction Research Laboratory. We work on developing AI technologies and improving communication between humans and AI technologies. If you want to know more information, please visit our website.
Okay, thank you. So I will show you another example with the avatar.
こんにちは。私は HAI 研究室の AI です。音声認識と音声合成ができます。音声を合成するときには、あなたの声を真似て話します。私がどうぞと言った後、5秒間マイクに向かって話してみてください。じゃん、どうぞ。
こんにちは。私の名前はジャンです。よろしくお願いします。
それでは、あなたの声を真似てみます。
このデモは HAI 研究室の音声合成技術を使用しています。
合成された音声はあなたの声に似ていましたか？音声認識の結果はこちらです。当ていましたか？
Okay, so this avatar speaks Japanese. How many of you understand what she said? Yeah, so you might complain why I show this to you that you're not understand. So this is the point. If the language technology is not built on your language, we cannot benefit on it. You cannot understand what's going on, and actually this avatar try to do the speech recognition and speech synthesis, but we don't know what's going on, right? So that's why, despite the very successful what the technology have been done, so if we see in the next slide, there are 7,000 languages spoken today, and how many language technology that have been supported for those languages? Only 100, 200 languages. Of course, the current recent research, they claim that they can up to 1,000 or 4,000, but the real evaluation is not yet done, and there are still 6,000 remain languages that are uncovered. And if you see that, if the languages are not covered by the technology, it became less use. But if the language is implemented in the technology, they can more use. So, but why is so important that we have the technology for all mother language? Maybe can we have just several languages? So if we go to the next slide. So the most important if we have the technology for all mother language, this means that there possibility for us to connect, possibility for us to connecting the billion people in the world. And once we can connect, there possibility to do education and knowledge sharing, and we can share the information on how to learning the material, and this can force improve the humanity. But what is the main challenge? The first one is the challenge in building the technology itself, because current technology, they're based on the machine learning that they have, basically based on the supervised learning, so they need a lot of data. So while there are 1,000 languages, they only have very under-resourced language, so that's difficult. So that's why we need to find way how to build the technology even with the small data. The second one is that how to make this widespread use, because it's not just creating language technology for many languages. Okay, we built 4,000 language, that's finished. No, it's the way how we are able to work with the community, especially the community who use the language, and empower them to build the solution they need. So actually, I and my colleagues, we organized the LT for All international conference next week. In here is actually one of the global connection initiative that we bring together various people, so from UNESCO, policymaker, language technology researcher, and language community to discuss what is the main problem and how, what the solution that we can do. So of course, you're welcome to come next week. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sakriani Sakti, for your wonderful examples, especially language technology examples. Thank you, our panelists, and we can observe from the speeches of our panelists that there are a lot of achievements of new technologies of AI in multilingual educational environment. At the same time, there are many challenges that we can face. And now I'm going to ask each of our panelists to share in only 1 minute 2 key recommendations. With emerging technologies nowadays, in your opinions, what are the 2 most urgent actions to take forward to promote mother tongue languages as well as multilingualism and language diversity? And now we will follow in inverse order. So let's start with Ms. Sakriani Sakti.
Thank you. So related to the challenge that I mentioned before, so the recommendation first is the AI development. I think government, research institute, and industry leaders should prioritize the development of AI-driven language technology for underrepresented language. And so this includes the multilingual AI research, open data sets, open resource for low resource language, and ensuring that this AI can model even with the low resource data. The second one is the community empowerment. So because the effective adoption that this long-term sustainable of the AI-driven language technology is require close collaboration among government, academia, industry, and language communities. So that's why this is not only about preserving the mother language, but also empower communities through language technology, like enabling education and knowledge sharing while allowing them to actively participate in this digital era and also shape the future of their linguistic and cultural heritage.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tinti Rabotapi, your turn.
Okay. Now, because I'm from the ministry, I think 2 critical issues. Firstly, we've got to make sure that ministries have got strong policies that advocate for use of multilingualism so that it is not an option, but it is a requirement. And then secondly, the development of quality resources that can be easily accessible through various platforms. But lastly, the issue of support to ensure that teachers are supported on how to use the technology. And we must not make assumptions that mere access to technology means competence to use it. There has to be strong mechanisms that can be used to support teachers to implement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Now I would like to ask Mr. Pauling Melatanja.
En termes de recommandations,
Well, by way of recommendation, I have 2. The first is data collection. Languages, especially African languages, are under-endowed, so to speak. We have very scant resources to develop AI, for example, along the lines of what we've seen for other languages. So we need to bolster language collection on African, data collection on African languages, and research for high quality tools requires the data. And the second recommendation involves cooperation between pedagogists, researchers, linguists, and so on. So we need to foster that cooperation so that novel, interesting solutions can be proposed. Otherwise, our languages will not appear in the digital world on the same footing as others.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to ask Ms. Monge Tlaka.
So one recommendation, just as I indicated earlier, it's about governments ensuring that public funding that's used to develop and create materials, those resources are released under an open license and are accessible on OER platforms that are not behind any paywall to ensure that they are available. And I think it talks to the point you mentioned about not having enough content. So by having content that's accessible to the public will resolve some of the issues in terms of the research that's been done. And I think the issue of capacity building for teachers has been mentioned, so this is crucial to ensure that it's not one-time intervention, but this becomes part of how the education system is basically run, supporting teachers, supporting learners, and the communities in developing, adapting, and using these resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not the least, Cecilia, please.
Yes, I want to comment on the AI part again, because it definitely is a challenge, but if you use what we have used, translators or mother language speakers reading it and adding it to the AI, you can, until we wait for the data to be good enough and the languages to be good enough, we could do it that way. So that's a possibility, and I think we had success with that, and we'll still keep working on it. And I also want to say a recommendation is to work together. When translating, we've worked with UNESCO, and we couldn't have done it without them. And also what you said about the books and the open open educational resources. And I also think that this is an opportunity, especially for me and for us, to work together with you, because I see that we have a lot of things in common. So that is something I really enjoyed about all these presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, my great appreciation is going to each of our panel members for sharing with us their great experience, their ideas, and their understanding of challenges. And now I would like to open the floor for, I think, 1 or 2 questions. We still have some time. So, yes, please use your microphone on the table if you have. Yes, this one. Thank you.
Hello, bonjour. I will ask my question in English. These were very interesting opportunities, and I think all of your presentations showed the value of AI. I'm a UNESCO chair in Living Heritage, and one of the principles that we value truly is the intergenerational transmission of culture, including language. And I'm wondering, in your practice, have you perhaps started seeing that there is a growing dependency on the language transmission that is computerized rather than on the human transmission of languages, particularly languages that are endangered or are not as common perhaps in the everyday use? And is that something that you're thinking about researching and looking into, or is this kind of something that is not playing a role in some of your analyses?
Thank you for the question. Who would like to ask, to reply?
Merci beaucoup pour votre question.
Thank you for the question. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I would say that of the aspects involving transmission between various generations and linguistic aspects, yes, it's taken into account, at least in 2 respects, from what I know in Africa. Firstly, in data collection or the creation of AI models. Data collection needs taking into account different categories of people. age, for example, and that allows us to have AI which is sufficiently general. For example, if we only get data on children, then it's not going to work for adults. And everything to do with adult voice. And then the subject matter. We've talked about indigenous knowledge earlier, and in creative and cultural industries, for example, proverbs, explaining proverbs. These are issues for which we need to collect data from adults, first and foremost. The AI comes from the adults, and then it's directed towards the youngsters.
Okay, thank you. Anyone would like to add?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I think, firstly, if there's no concerted effort to invest in indigenous languages, then the prospect of them dying naturally is inevitable. So there has to be a concerted effort that should be enforced through legislation, where the rights of all languages and language speakers are protected, and there has to be an intended way through which you are able to ensure the development of these languages, ensure that there's proper advocacy in the communities, that you are able to encourage the use of indigenous languages. Learners should not feel inferior when they use or practice what they believe in. It's something that needs to be encouraged. And then development of technological resources through AI and others is just a support mechanism that can enhance and ensure that there's proper support around these languages. But the issue around political will and creating a positive environment where every language speaker feels comfortable to use the language that they are comfortable to use in any environment. I think in that way, we can then ensure that, there's, languages can survive beyond various generations.
Thank you so much. Any more comments? Yes, thank you.
So, during LT for All 2019, actually we have a discussion on this, and at that time it was someone mentioned that sometimes the language transmission is difficult because the young generation sometimes not interested to learn the indigenous language, and sometimes because in the past it was forbidden, so it was difficult. But with the language technology, if we make like a game or something that is fancy, they are trying to be interested again, and they would like to then learn the language. And of course, that you mentioned that it might be different if through the machine or between the human and human. So that's why it's important that when we build the language technology, that we need to collaborate with the native speakers, so then we can really represent the culture into the language technology itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there is no more comments, we can take one more question. Yes, please.
My question is about the digital literacy program. Is your solution built in a way that any community can come and add a language today? And another question is to everyone, how can we start this as a movement to make it technology we create, especially AI tools, so that in a way that any community can come and add their language?
Yeah,
It's working. For the platform, I would say yes, but the way it is now is that someone needs to approve, because we need to also make sure that the content is quality assured. And even though it's building on African and Asian books as a basis, that's important for us. So, but I'm also thinking the same thing should go for the interactive books. I mean, in our dream world, it would be possible for a child a couple of years from now to actually create his or her own book in her own language. And that's the goal that we are actually working towards.
Thank you. Okay, final question. Thank you. Yes, please. Okay. Microphone. Please take your microphone.
With the prospect that you've just shared about like everyone being able to create their own books, contributing and adding to platforms and AI and technologies, how can we ensure accuracy? Discrimination is not there. How can we ensure like ethical kind of development of technologies and AI? Because like even now, when you go to any of the platforms that are very popular, the results that you get for any question that you ask are kind of like biased towards whoever developed and the algorithms that are used in the development of the technology. So I think with the kind of prospect of everyone being able to do this, how can we monitor or control this? And it's a question for any of the panel members, because I know that it's not an easy one to answer.
I mean, if I want to can say something first, I think it's many really good and difficult questions to answer, but at least if you have moderators and even if you have people who know the language, and so someone needs to actually make sure that this is, you can't just let it out there, but you know, really good questions. I want to see if anyone else has any good answers.
So I've been involved in the early development of the African Storybook Project. It has won a couple of awards. There are a number of stories that are on there. We grappled with exactly that same problem. And what we found with advocacy, with communicating with the local communities that are developing books, getting into partnerships with government, with schools, that we haven't found a problem per se, and it might be a unique instance. There might be those titles. I remember there was one, I won't talk about that one today, but it was about a moral story, but the way it was depicted was a bit more violent for young kids. So there was a lot of debate about it, and educators were then able to adapt that story. So the idea was to let the community police each other, to trust each other, and to flag if there's something that is not needed on the platform, then it can be taken down. But you don't you don't put boundaries to say you are not going to upload, we're going to police, we're going to look at the content first before it's uploaded, because then people are not encouraged to share, people are not encouraged to feel free, that they understand, they know, they own their language. So that model, I think, has worked successfully for ELRN as well. The books that we're getting from a number of publishers, we're getting from a number of governments. We don't do a QC because those are used at schools, but it's about allowing the community to use what's there. If there's openly licensed, again, they can adapt it to improve on the quality as you've indicated. Thank you.
Could I just add something? The question really is that all the AI, which is most often used, what you need to bear in mind that it only reconstitutes data that's been provided. So if you want to create AI which is consistent with a way of thinking or a certain reality or context, you must provide data particular to that context. And that's why we have all sorts of AI which is specific and developed every day for specific contexts, with specific data for young people, for primary, secondary education, contextual context, to provide data for that sort of AI. The other aspect is that today, when it comes to AI research, there are two aspects being highlighted: transparency of AI, firstly, how major groups propose AI, what process are they following, what data are they using? And the second is explicability. That is, the AI designers have to explain how it works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I can notice that nobody was boring during our session, and I would like to thank the organizers of this event for providing us such a great opportunity to discuss such important issues about emerging technologies. And we had great examples from South Africa, Cameroon, Japan, and Norway. It's really great and fantastic opportunity for us. And finally, tomorrow there will be some policy roundtable for policymakers, some roundtable discussions. I think that we need to note that by prioritizing multilingual, user-centered designs, supporting community-driving efforts, and promoting multilingual AI literacy to close the AI knowledge gap, policies can strengthen the digital presence of low-resource languages and ensure technological process benefits to diverse needs of all language users. Thank you very much for your great attention, and please enjoy your evening. Thank you.